This is totally bonkers. Meghan Markle has decided to use the 5th birthday of her own daughter to lash out, making her first public statement about the very clear hypocrisy of releasing new images like that, which we just saw on Instagram, while claiming to be the hero for protecting children from social media. We see you, Meghan, and your angry state.
Simple question, really. One that shouldn't require an international investigation, palace intervention, or a team of expensive lawyers to answer. Where was Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor born? Now you would think that the birth of a child 7th in line to the British throne would be one of the most straightforward, well-documented and transparent events in modern royal history. A hospital, a date, a time, medical professionals, paperwork. The ordinary, boring bureaucracy of bringing a life into the world. And yet here we are years later and the story isn't getting clearer, it's getting murkier, because what has emerged recently is not ordinary. It is not straightforward. And if the reports coming out are accurate, if even half of what is being discussed behind the scenes holds water, then Meghan Markle has a problem. A very, very serious problem. Reports suggest that staff at the Portland hospital, the nurses and midwives who worked at the exclusive London facility during the window in which Archie was allegedly born there, have made claims that are, to put it politely, deeply inconvenient for the Duchess of Sussex's official narrative. These claims suggest a reality where she was never actually there as a patient. To understand why this is a potential bombshell, we have to look back at the official story. On May 6, 2019, the world was told a royal baby had arrived, but the way it was handled was bizarre from the start. Royal births traditionally follow a pattern of transparency and public accountability. The Lindo wing at St. Mary's, the cameras, the official announcement on the easel at Buckingham Palace. It's a moment of shared national history, but Meghan and Harry decided they were above tradition. They demanded a level of secrecy that looked less like a desire for privacy and more like a tactical concealment. The birth certificate eventually listed the birthplace as Portland Hospital. The Portland is not a massive, sprawling NHS complex where you can get lost in the shuffle. It is a boutique private facility for the elite. It is small, it is intimate, and its staff are some of the most specialized in the world. They know who is on their ward, they know who is in labor. They know who has delivered. The idea that a member of the British royal family could be admitted, undergo labor, and deliver a child without the staff being aware of it is, frankly, laughable. Yet the word on the ground from those within the medical community is that there is no record of her presence among the people who would have actually been there to provide care. The claim is not just that she was discreet. The claim is that she wasn't there. If that is true, we are no longer talking about a privacy preference. We are talking about a falsified public record. We are talking about a deception that goes to the heart of the British constitutional order. Archie is in the line of succession. His birth is a matter of state, not just a private family matter. The legitimacy of that birth must be beyond any shadow of a doubt, and yet the shadows are all we have. And this isn't just coming from the haters or the trolls that Meghan loves to blame for her unpopularity. It is reportedly coming from the palace itself. Rumors have intensified that the palace has been forced to conduct its own birth checks. Think about the gravity of that for a second. The royal household, an institution that survives on its dignity and its ability to stay out of the mud, reportedly feels the need to verify the birth of one of its own. That does not happen because of a few tweets. That happens because there are discrepancies in the paperwork, inconsistencies in the timeline, or a lack of verification from the medical facility involved. The palace investigation is the ultimate blow. It suggests that even the late Queen or the current King could not get a straight answer. It suggests that the truth Meghan and Harry are so fond of speaking about doesn't align with the facts the institution requires. And what has Portland Hospital said in response to the growing noise? Silence, or more accurately, a refusal to confirm. While hospitals must protect patient confidentiality, there is a very specific type of silence that occurs when a public claim is made that an institution cannot back up.
ain't going to shut us up. So let me take you through it all, then we're going to get analysis with Royal YouTube sensation P. Diner. So, at 1 a.m. Los Angeles time, here was the Instagram post. Our dream girl, happy 5th birthday, Lil. And I have to be honest, the mainstream media was totally buying this. The Sun, Meghan shares adorable picture with smiling Prince Harry and Lilibet to celebrate daughter's 5th birthday.
Portland, and his birth certificate says he was born at the Portland. The hospital confirming that fact violates no privacy. It simply confirms a public document. Their failure to do so is a deafening roar. Let's look at the pattern here, because with Meghan Markle, there is always a pattern. This is a woman who told Oprah Winfrey, with a completely straight face, that she and Harry were married in a secret backyard ceremony 3 days before the multi-million-pound spectacle the taxpayers funded. She said it was just them and the Archbishop of Canterbury. Except, of course, the Archbishop himself had to come out and clarify that no, that didn't happen. A legal marriage requires witnesses and a specific venue. She wasn't telling the truth. She was telling her truth, which is a fancy way of saying a fantasy that makes her feel special. If she can lie or misremember the details of her own wedding to the head of the Church of England, why should we assume the narrative of the birth was handled with any more respect for the facts? This is the same woman who claimed she knew nothing about the royal family, despite being photographed as a teenager in front of Buckingham Palace and writing about Kate Middleton on her blog years before she met Harry. The inconsistencies are not bugs in the Sussex system, they are features. The strategy is always the same. Create a narrative that serves the moment. Wrap it in a layer of emotional manipulation, and then call anyone who asks for receipts a bully or a racist. It's a tired act, and the public, especially in the UK and the Commonwealth, has seen through it. But this birth issue is different. This isn't about whether she was mean to staff or whether she wore the right hat. This is about the legal requirements of the Crown. The silence from the Sussex camp on these specific allegations is also telling. They are usually very quick to set their lawyers on anyone who breathes a word they don't like. They sue for everything. They issue statements through their various mouthpieces at the drop of a hat. And yet on this specific point, the claims from Portland staff and the palace checks, there is a curious lack of litigation. If someone was falsely claiming I hadn't given birth at the hospital listed on my child's birth certificate, I would have the records published and the hospital's CEO on camera within the hour. Instead, we get more silence. We get more privacy. What does this silence mean? It means the gravity of the situation has finally reached a point where the old tricks won't work. You can't gaslight a birth certificate. You can't narrative manage a lack of medical witnesses. If the palace is indeed conducting checks, it's because they have to protect the institution from a future constitutional crisis. Imagine a scenario 20 or 30 years from now where the legitimacy of the line of succession is challenged in court because the basic facts of a birth were never verified. The palace cannot allow that. Meghan has spent years trying to convince the world she is a victim of a stuffy and outdated institution. But those stuffy rules exist for a reason. They exist to ensure that the monarchy remains a stable, verifiable part of the British state. By treating Archie's birth like a Hollywood secret or a plot point in a Netflix drama, she hasn't just demanded privacy, she has invited suspicion. She has created a vacuum of information, and as we are seeing, that vacuum is being filled by very serious allegations from the very people who should have been there to see the truth. The deadpan reality of the situation is almost humorous if it weren't so pathetic. Here we have a couple who wants all the titles, all the security, and all the prestige of the royal family, but they don't want to provide the one thing the public deserves in return, the truth. They want to be His and Her Royal Highness while acting like his and her private citizens whenever it suits them. But you can't have it both ways. If you are in the line of succession, your birth is public business. The blow for Meghan here is that she is losing control of the narrative. For the first time, it's not just the tabloids she hates who are asking questions. It's the professionals, it's the midwives, it's the palace officials. It's the people who deal in facts, not feelings. And when the facts don't line up with the feelings, Meghan Markle's world
propagandists that are going along with Meghan's defense of her decision to share these pictures on Instagram. But what I found fascinating is that even the article from Emily Barak, who is like the new Omid Scobie, still made the point, this is in Town and Country, that the majority of Meghan's posts on Instagram this year have featured her children. The majority, including images of her family at Disney, a throwback for Archie's birthday in early May.
A clip crumble, we have to ask, if she wasn't at the Portland, where was she? And why the elaborate cover-up? Why the fake-out with the press? Why the delay in the announcement? The more you look at the timeline of May 2019, the less it makes sense. The official statement said she had gone into labor hours after the baby had supposedly already been born. It was a mess. A coordinated, intentional mess designed to keep everyone off balance. But why go to such lengths? Is it possible that the huge blow we are seeing now is just the tip of the iceberg? If the Portland staff are starting to talk, even off the record, the dam is breaking. You can only keep a secret like that for so long when dozens of medical professionals are involved. Eventually, the truth comes out. It always does. And for a woman who has built a brand on authenticity and empowerment, the revelation that her most significant moment as a royal was shrouded in deception would be the end. It would be the final nail in the coffin of her public credibility. The British public and those across the Commonwealth aren't stupid. They see the patterns. They see the way the palace has distanced itself. They see the way the hospital is remaining silent. And they see the way Meghan and Harry continue to play the victim while the ground shifts beneath their feet. The gravity of this situation cannot be overstated. This is not a celebrity scandal, it is a royal crisis. As this investigation, both official and unofficial, continues, Meghan Markle remains in her California mansion, far away from the nurses and midwives she allegedly never met. But distance doesn't change the facts. And if the palace birth checks confirm what the staff are saying, no amount of PR, no amount of high-end interviews, and no amount of truth-telling on Netflix will be able to save her from the consequences. The question remains, where was Archie born? It's a simple question. It's a question that could be answered in 5 seconds with the right documentation. But as the days go by and the evidence mounts, the simple answer seems further away than ever. And that, more than anything else, is the most damning evidence of all. When the truth is on your side, you don't hide. When the truth is on your side, you don't need to mislead the press or confuse the palace. You just show up, but Meghan didn't show up. At least not at the Portland. And that is a blow she may never recover from. The silence of the hospital, the whispers of the staff, and the cold, hard checks being run by the palace all point to one conclusion. The story we were told was not the truth. And in the world of the British monarchy, the truth is the only thing that matters in the end. Meghan Markle may have thought she could rewrite the rules of the royal family, but she is finding out the hard way that the crown has a very long memory and a very low tolerance for being lied to. Let's be extremely clear about the gravity of the situation. We aren't just talking about a mother wanting a bit of peace and quiet. We are talking about allegations that the Duchess of Sussex was never actually a patient at the Portland hospital during the window of Archie's birth. Think about the logistics of that for a moment. The Portland is a high-security, high-end facility. It's the kind of place where every entry is logged, every patient is attended to by a team of specialists, and every birth is part of a rigorous administrative trail. Yet the word trickling out from the medical community in London is one of collective amnesia. There is no, I remember the day the Duchess arrived. There is no, we had to clear the floor for her. Instead, there is a haunting, professional silence. A silence that suggests there is simply nothing to remember because the event, as described to the public, never took place within those walls. If you find that hard to believe, look at the hospital's own reaction. In the world of high-stakes PR, a simple confirmation is the easiest way to kill a rumor. If a hospital is accused of not hosting a royal birth that is listed on an official birth certificate, they should be able to issue a standard, legally vetted statement of fact. But the Portland Hospital has notably failed to provide a robust confirmation of the birth. Their refusal to stand behind the official narrative is a signal fire to the rest of the world. It's a non-denial denial that leaves Meghan Markle standing on very thin ice. When the institution named on the legal paperwork won't back you up, you haven't just lost the PR war, you've lost the record. And why does the record matter? Because the palace has reportedly begun its own birth check. This isn't just a casual glance at a folder. This is the institution of the monarchy conducting a forensic audit of the line of succession. The palace doesn't do this for fun. They don't do this to be petty, as the Sussex supporters like to claim. They do this because the integrity of the British crown depends entirely on the verifiable legitimacy of its heirs. If there is even a 1% doubt that a child was born of the body, as the ancient legal phrasing requires, then that child's place in the line of succession is legally void. By conducting these checks, the palace is essentially admitting that they no longer trust the word of Harry and Meghan. The men in grey suits have decided that their truth is no longer sufficient, and they are looking for the actual truth. It's almost comedic when you step back and look at the sheer audacity of it. Meghan Markle, a woman who has built an entire brand on the concept of authenticity, now finds herself in a position where her most basic claims of motherhood are being scrutinized by the very institution she tried to tear down. She wanted to modernize the monarchy, but she forgot that the monarchy is built on a foundation of law, not Hollywood scripts. In California, you can reinvent your past, you can edit your history, and you can manifest your reality. In the United Kingdom, you have to provide the receipts, and the receipts for the Portland hospital seem to be missing. The nurses and midwives who are reportedly speaking out are not doing so for fame. They are professionals who understand the weight of their roles. In a small, elite hospital like the Portland, the arrival of a duchess isn't just another Tuesday. It's a logistical operation involving security, specialized catering, and a dedicated medical team. You cannot sneak a royal into a labor ward. You cannot have a secret birth in a facility that is built on the very idea of high visibility, high-cost care. The fact that these professionals are reportedly shaking their heads and saying, "She wasn't here," is the ultimate blow. It's a rejection of the Sussex fantasy by the people who live in the real world of medicine and bureaucracy. And let's talk about that deadpan humor that seems to follow the Sussexes everywhere lately. It is peak irony that Meghan, who complained about the intrusiveness of the royal press pack, created a situation so shrouded in mystery that she is guaranteed a lifetime of scrutiny. If she had simply walked out of the hospital like every other royal mother before her, the questions would have ended in 5 minutes. Instead, she chose the path of shadows. She chose to play a game of now you see me, now you don't, with the British public's right to know about the succession. And now, the shadows are closing in. The sarcastic undertone of this entire saga is that the Sussexes constantly demand accountability from the media and the royal family, yet they seem to believe they are exempt from it themselves. They want the titles for their children, titles that are granted by the crown, but they don't want to follow the rules that the crown requires for those titles to be valid. You can't have a prince of the United Kingdom whose birth is a classified event that the hospital won't confirm and the staff don't remember. That isn't a royal birth, that's a plot point from a daytime soap opera. The palace's investigation is the climax of this drama. It shows that the bridge has not just been burned, it has been vaporized. For the King's office to feel the need to conduct checks means that the level of distrust has reached a terminal point. They are looking at the paperwork, they are talking to the medical authorities, and they are preparing for whatever fallout comes next. And make no mistake, the fallout will be massive. If it is officially determined that the birth did not occur as stated on the certificate, the legal implications are staggering. We are talking about the potential removal of Archie from the line of succession. We are talking about fraud charges. We are talking about the complete and total expulsion of the Sussexes from any remaining shred of royal life. Meghan Markle thought she could play a high-stakes game of poker with a 1,000-year-old institution. She thought she could use her American PR tactics to bypass the boring rules of the British state. But the British state is a patient beast. It waits, it watches, and it keeps records. And when those records don't match the story being told on Netflix, the state acts.
But there was nothing adorable about this. What it is a hypocritical money play. At 5 years old, Meghan Markle has realised that that poor young girl is the best way for her to make money. So that's why she's defending the fact that she's going to keep going online with these weird sort of half shots, the hearts. But look at these pictures. Come on. When you put the two of them together and everything else that we have seen with this poor young girl, of course we know who
The nurses at the Portland aren't just staff, they are witnesses. The midwives aren't just medical workers, they are the keepers of the gate. And if they are saying the gate never opened for Meghan, then the whole house of cards comes tumbling down. The most biting part of this is how predictable it all was. From the moment the private birth was announced, anyone with a modicum of common sense knew this would end in tears. You cannot treat a constitutional event like a private celebrity pregnancy. You cannot hide the seventh in line to the throne behind a wall of privacy and expect the world to just take your word for it, especially when your word has been proven to be, let's say, flexible in the past. As the palace concludes its checks, the tension is palpable. The Sussexes are increasingly isolated in their Montecito fortress, clinging to a narrative that is being dismantled brick by the very people who were supposed to be part of it. The blow to Meghan's ego must be substantial, but the blow to her credibility is fatal. How do you recover from the exposure that you weren't even at the hospital where you claimed to have given birth? How do you look the public in the eye when the nurses who were on duty that night are looking at you with confusion? The narrative arc of Meghan Markle is moving from the Duchess who changed everything to the woman who imagined everything. It is a tragedy of her own making, fueled by a deep-seated belief that she could outsmart the system. But the system is built on nurses, midwives, and paper. It's built on the cold reality of the Portland hospital wards and the meticulous files of Buckingham Palace. And as the two worlds collide, only one of them is going to remain standing. The sarcastic reality here is that for all of Meghan's talk about using her voice, it is the silence of the Portland hospital that is the most eloquent voice of all. It's a silence that says more than any six-part documentary ever could. It's a silence that confirms the suspicions of millions. And as the palace continues its quiet, deliberate work of checking the facts, that silence is turning into a roar that Meghan Markle will not be able to ignore for much longer. The greatest blow isn't a headline or a mean tweet. It's the simple, deadpan realization that the world finally sees the gap between the story and the truth. And in that gap, the Sussex's royal future is disappearing. The Portland hospital, if they are expressed through refusal to confirm, are the cracks in the foundation. The palace checks are the inspectors arriving to condemn the building, and Meghan is left inside, trying to tell everyone that the view is lovely and the structure is sound, even as the walls start to fall. It's a spectacle, certainly, but it's no longer royal drama. Let's talk about the professionals. Let's talk about the nurses and the midwives at Portland Hospital, the women and men who spend their lives bringing new generations into the world within those exclusive London walls. These are people whose careers are built on precision, documentation, and a physical presence that cannot be faked. For years, the Sussex camp has maintained that Archie was born at the Portland. It's on the birth certificate. It's the official line. But there is a growing, undeniable chorus of voices from within that medical community that is saying something very different. They are saying that Meghan Markle was never there. Not as a patient, not as a woman in labor, and certainly not as a new mother. Think about the sheer audacity required to manufacture a birth location in the most scrutinized family on the planet. If these exposures from the hospital staff are accurate, we are looking at a level of deception that borders on the pathological. In a boutique hospital like the Portland, a royal arrival isn't just a quiet event, it's a total operational takeover. It involves special security clearances, the clearing of wings, the briefing of specific medical teams, and a logistical footprint that leaves a permanent mark on the institution. Yet the reported consensus among the staff working during that period is a chilling lack of any such footprint. No one saw the security. No one saw the Duchess of Difficult making her demands. No one saw the arrival of the seventh in line to the throne. It's as if he simply materialized out of thin air 2 days later at Windsor. Now some might say, oh, they were just very discreet. But let's be real. You can be discreet about which exit you use, but you cannot be discreet about the biological and medical reality of a birth in a functioning hospital. You cannot bypass the nursing staff. You cannot bypass the midwives who are legally required to be present and to sign off on the delivery. If the midwives of the Portland are now questioning the narrative, it's because their professional integrity is being used as a shield for a story that doesn't add up. And the sarcastic reality is that Meghan, who prides herself on being the smartest person in the room, seemingly forgot that nurses talk, midwives talk, and they have a very low tolerance for being written into a fairy tale they didn't actually witness. This brings us to the most significant blow of all, the palace birth checks. To those outside the UK, this might sound like a minor administrative hurdle. It isn't. In the context of the British monarchy, a birth check by the palace is the equivalent of a forensic audit by the FBI. It means that the Crown, the institution that Harry and Meghan have spent the last 4 years insulting, has officially reached a point of zero trust. They are no longer willing to take the Sussex's word for anything. They are going back to the source. They are looking at the hospital logs, the admission records, and the signatures on the medical files. And if the palace is conducting these checks, it's because the receipts provided by the Sussexes didn't pass the smell test. The deadpan humor of this situation is almost too much to bear. Here is a couple that complains about misinformation, while allegedly providing a birth location that the hospital itself refuses to confirm. When the media asks the Portland for a simple confirmation that the birth happened there, the response isn't a proud, "Yes, we were honored to host the Duchess." It's a wall of silence, a refusal to verify, a legalistic dodging that tells you everything you need to know. If the hospital can't confirm it and the staff says it didn't happen, then we are left with a birth certificate that looks less like a legal document and more like a work of fiction. Let's examine the Meghan pattern. She wanted a home birth at Frogmore Cottage. That was the original story leaked to the press. Then suddenly there was a change of plan. We were told she was whisked to the Portland in the middle of the night in a secret convoy. It sounds like a scene from a mediocre spy thriller. But why the change? If you want privacy, a home birth is the ultimate solution. Why go to a hospital in central London, the most watched city in the world, only to then claim you were never there? The answer, as always with Meghan, likely lies in the need to control the narrative at the expense of the truth. She wanted the prestige of a royal birth but the secrecy of a Hollywood starlet, and she thought she could manipulate the British system to give her both. But the British system is not a Hollywood studio. It is a machine of state, and that machine requires transparency when it comes to the line of succession. By allegedly bypassing the standard medical protocols, and then pointing to a hospital that won't back her up, Meghan hasn't just been private, she has been deceptive. And that deception is now catching up with her. The palace investigation is the climax of a long-simmering tension. It represents the moment the grown-ups in the room decided that the Sussex games had gone too far. If Archie's birth cannot be verified at the location stated on his certificate, the constitutional implications are a nightmare. It calls into question the legitimacy of his title and his place in the line of succession. And let's be skeptical about the timing. Why is this coming out now? Perhaps it's because the staff at the Portland are tired of the Sussex truth being the only version of events in the public domain. Perhaps they're tired of seeing their profession used to validate a timeline that doesn't match their work logs. The exposure from the nurses and midwives is a grassroots rebellion against the gaslighting that has become the Sussex's primary export. These are people who value the truth because their jobs depend on it. They don't have Netflix deals to protect. They don't have a brand to manage. They just have the facts of what happened or didn't happen on their ward in May 2019. The sarcastic undertone here is that Meghan always talks about empowering women. Yet here we have a situation where the professional women of the medical field, the midwives and nurses, are the ones being sidelined by her narrative. Their roles are being erased to make room for a story that serves her image. If she truly cared about empowering women, She would respect the professional honesty of the midwives who are now raising their eyebrows at her
rhetoric that your 5-year-old daughter is giving you permission to share her image for money. Now, my position on this is very clear. I think there's nothing wrong with parents sharing their children online. But remember, Prince Harry has called it evil. He has attacked parents who are doing exactly what you are doing. And of course, it is this total juxtaposition which has forced Meghan Markle to speak out to Newsweek. Let me take you through it. This from Jack Royce.
But for Meghan, empowerment is a one-way street that always leads back to her own reflection. The palace's decision to conduct these checks is the ultimate vote of no confidence. It is a public signal that the Sussexes are now considered unreliable narrators by the very family they belong to. Think about how embarrassing that is. To have your child's birth investigated by your grandfather's or father's staff because they don't believe your story. It's a humiliation that no amount of designer clothes or high-profile awards can cover up. It's a blow to the very core of Meghan's identity as a perfect mother and a perfect royal. And as the investigation continues, the silence from Montecito is deafening. Usually when Meghan is criticized, the Sussex PR machine goes into overdrive. We get stories about her healing, her joy, or her latest project. But on the matter of the Portland hospital and the palace birth checks, there is nothing but a vacuum. Because how do you spin a hospital's refusal to confirm your child was born there? How do you rebrand a lack of medical witnesses? You can't. You can only hope the story goes away, but it won't. Not this time. The British public has a very long memory for those who try to play them for fools. They remember the confusion of that birth announcement. They remember the weird photo call in the hall at Windsor where the baby was wrapped so tightly you couldn't see a feature. They remember the refusal to name the godparents. All of it was presented as privacy, but it felt like a shell game. And now the shells are being lifted, and the public is finding that there might not be anything underneath. The sarcasm of the situation is that in her quest for total control, Meghan has lost the one thing she needs to survive in the royal world: credibility. We are entering a new phase of the Sussex saga, the phase where the institutions, the hospitals, the palace, the medical boards stop being polite and start being factual. The exposure from the Portland staff is just the beginning. As more people feel emboldened to speak, the wall of secrecy that Meghan built around Archie's birth will continue to crumble. And when it finally falls, the image of the Duchess will be replaced by the reality of a woman who thought she could lie to a nation and get away with it. It will be the sound of a door closing on the Sussexes' last remaining link to the truth. Meghan Markle thought she could turn the British monarchy into a reality show where she was the producer, the director, and the star. But she forgot that in the real world, the supporting cast has a voice too. And the nurses, the midwives, and the palace officials are finally using theirs. The blow is coming, and it's going to be a heavy one. Because when you build your life on a foundation of smoke and mirrors, you eventually run out of air and the glass always breaks. This isn't a chaotic emergency room where patients blend into the background. This is the premier destination for the ultra-wealthy and the royal adjacent. It is a high-security boutique. When a member of the royal family is admitted, the entire building knows. The staff are briefed, the security is heightened, and the administrative trail is meticulous. And yet, reports are circulating that nurses and midwives who were on the rotas during the alleged birth of Archie have expressed total bewilderment at the official story. Their claim is simple but devastating. Meghan Markle was never there. They didn't see her arrive, they didn't treat her, and they didn't witness a birth. In the medical profession, especially in the UK under the scrutiny of the GMC and the Nursing and Midwifery Council, records are everything. A birth is not just a personal moment. It is a legal and medical event that requires multiple signatures from qualified professionals. If the staff at the Portland are signaling that they have no record or recollection of the Duchess of Sussex being a patient, we aren't just looking at a misunderstanding. We are looking at a potential case of institutional fraud. The sarcasm of the situation is almost painful. Meghan, the woman who demands accountability from everyone from the tabloid press to the king himself, is now facing a total lack of accountability for the most significant event in her royal tenure. The palace, it seems, has had enough. Sources indicate that Buckingham Palace has been forced to conduct its own internal birth check. Let that sink in for a moment. The Crown is checking the birth of its own seventh in line to the throne because the parent's story doesn't match the evidence. This is the ultimate institutional insult. It is the palace saying, "We no longer believe a word that comes out of Montecito." They are reportedly looking for admission logs, names of the attending physicians, and a verifiable chain of custody for the birth certificate. And what are they finding? According to these latest reports, they are finding a hospital that is strangely hesitant to back up the Duchess's claims. The Portland Hospital's refusal to confirm the birth is a deadpan masterpiece of corporate evasion. In any other circumstance, a hospital would be proud to confirm its role in a royal birth. It's the best marketing money can't buy. But when asked to verify that Archie Harrison was born within their walls, the Portland has gone into a defensive crouch. They cite patient confidentiality, of course, but there is a specific type of silence that suggests they are protecting themselves from being part of a false narrative. If the hospital confirms a birth that didn't happen on their premises, they are legally liable for falsifying records. If they deny it, they create a global scandal, so they say nothing. And in that silence, Meghan's credibility is being devoured. We have to look at the Sussex strategy here. It's always about the hidden truth. The secret wedding, the secret godparents, the secret birth. But why the secrets? Privacy is one thing, but the total erasure of a medical footprint is another. The skeptical observer has to ask, why was the announcement of the labor sent out hours after the birth had allegedly already occurred? Why was the doctor's signature on the birth announcement easel at Buckingham Palace missing? A move that broke centuries of tradition. The narrative arc of this birth has been crooked from day one. It was a production designed to keep the public at arm's length, but it inadvertently kept the truth at arm's length as well. The midwives and nurses at the Portland are the unsung heroes of this exposure. These are women who take immense pride in their work. For them to be told by the media that a royal birth happened under their noses without their involvement is an affront to their professional reality. If Meghan Markle had been there, these women would have been the ones monitoring her vitals, assisting in the delivery, and providing postnatal care. Their reported claims that she was never there aren't just gossip. They are a professional testimony. And it's a testimony that paints a very dark picture of the Sussexes' relationship with the truth. The climax of this drama is the intersection of law and ego. Meghan clearly thought she could treat the British monarchy like a Hollywood set, where you can fix it in post and change the script whenever it suits you. But the line of succession is governed by the Acts of Settlement and the Succession to the Crown Act. These are not suggestions, they are the legal bedrock of the United Kingdom. To occupy a place in that line, a child must be born of the body, meaning the birth must be witnessed and verified. If the hospital won't confirm it and the staff didn't see it, then the legal basis for Archie's titles and his place in the succession begins to dissolve. The ironic undertone is that the more Meghan and Harry try to speak their truth, the more the actual truth seems to flee from them. Every Netflix special and every opera interview is an attempt to rewrite the past, but you cannot rewrite the admission logs of a private hospital. You cannot rebrand the fact that the people who were supposed to be your medical team have no memory of you. This is a huge blow for Meghan because it is the one thing she cannot control with a PR press release. She cannot cancel the nurses at the Portland. She cannot sue the palace for checking the facts. She is trapped by the reality she tried to circumvent, as the palace birth checks continue. The tension between London and Montecito has reached a breaking point. This isn't about a family rift anymore, it's about the integrity of the state. If it is found that the birth certificate contains inaccuracies regarding the location or circumstances of the birth, the consequences will be seismic. We are talking about the potential stripping of titles on a scale never before seen. We are talking about the complete delegitimization of the Sussexes as royal figures. The skeptical public has been waiting for the smoking gun in the Meghan Markle saga, and it seems that the Portland hospital staff might have just handed it over. The deadpan reality of the situation is that Meghan has become a victim of her own complexity. Had she simply been transparent, she would be
A clip of Archie skiing, an Easter egg hunt, a behind-the-scenes video of an as-ever shoot, and posts on International Women's Day and Valentine's Day, which makes these words in front of just 10 fans in Geneva ring very hollow indeed.
Children are no longer just participants in digital spaces. They are too often the product.
Rated as a mother. Instead, she chose a path of obfuscation that has led to her own family and the medical establishment doubting her most basic claims. The sarcasm of her situation is that in her pursuit of being the most scrutinized woman in the world, she has finally invited a level of scrutiny that she cannot survive. The mirrors are breaking, and the reflections are no longer flattering. The exposure by the Portland nurses and midwives is a reminder that the world is not a soundstage. You can't just call cut when the questions get too hard. The palace is doing its job, the medical staff are doing theirs, and Meghan is left to deal with the fallout of a narrative that has finally run out of road. This isn't just a blow to her image, it's the end of the Sussex illusion. Let's pause and consider the sheer gravity of what is being suggested. We are talking about the Portland Hospital in London, an institution that prides itself on being the premier choice for the global elite. This is a facility where every patient is a VIP, where every room is a fortress of luxury, and where the staff are trained to be the most attentive professionals in the world. In a hospital of this size and specialization, the presence of a member of the British royal family is not something that goes unnoticed. It is a monumental event that requires a specific medical team, a coordinated security detail, and a mountain of administrative paperwork. Yet the reported testimony from the nurses and midwives who were on duty during the window of Archie's birth is one of complete absence. No duchess, no labour, no delivery. If these reports are to be believed, we are looking at a deception that isn't just a private family matter, but a direct challenge to the legal protocols of the United Kingdom. In Britain, a birth certificate is a legal document of the state. If a birth certificate lists a hospital as the place of birth, and the staff of that hospital have no record of the mother being present, we are entering the territory of institutional fraud. The sarcasm of the situation is almost too heavy to carry. Meghan, the woman who spends her days lecturing the world on misinformation and the importance of truth, is now the central figure in a birth narrative that the medical community itself is reportedly disavowing. It is the ultimate deadpan irony, the Duchess of Authenticity being exposed by the very people who do the actual work of bringing life into the world. And then we have the palace. The reports that Buckingham Palace is conducting its own internal birth check are the final nail in the coffin of trust. The royal household is an institution that survives on its ability to maintain the status quo and protect the dignity of the sovereign. For the palace to launch a verification process into the birth of a child seventh in line to the throne is a public admission that they do not trust the parents. This is not a family check-in. This is a forensic audit of the line of succession. The palace is reportedly looking for the medical receipts that should exist, the signatures of the doctors, the admission logs of the Portland, and the legal verification that the child was born of the body, as required by the ancient laws of the realm. The Portland Hospital's own reaction, or lack thereof, is perhaps the most damning piece of the puzzle. When the world's media asks a simple question, was Archie Harrison born at your hospital? A truthful institution should have a simple answer, but the Portland has offered nothing but a wall of non-committal silence. While they hide behind the shield of patient confidentiality, the skeptical observer knows that confirming a public birth certificate violates no one's privacy. If the certificate says he was born there, the hospital should be able to say, yes, that is correct. The fact that they won't, coupled with the reports that the staff never saw her, creates a vacuum of credibility that is swallowing the Duchess whole. This isn't just about a hospital stay. This is about a pattern of behavior that treats the British public as if they are too dim-witted to notice the gaps in the story. We were told she wanted a home birth, then we were told she was whisked to London in secret, then we were told the labour started hours after the birth had already happened. The timeline is a mess, the logistics are a fantasy, and the witnesses are missing. It feels less like a royal birth and more like a poorly executed Hollywood production where the continuity editor quit halfway through. Meghan Markle clearly thought she could apply the privacy tactics of a B-list celebrity to the constitutional requirements of a royal prince. She forgot that in the UK, the line of succession belongs to the people, not to the PR firms. The nurses and midwives who are reportedly speaking out are not doing this for a payout. These are professionals whose entire careers are built on the integrity of their records. If they are saying she wasn't there, it's because their professional pride won't allow them to be part of a fake history. They represent the reality that Meghan has spent years trying to avoid. The reality that you cannot just manifest a medical event and expect the world to believe it without evidence. The blow to Meghan is that she can no longer control the people who actually do the work. She can control the narrative in a glossy magazine, but she cannot control the memory of a midwife who knows exactly who was on her ward and who wasn't. The constitutional implications here are seismic. The Acts of Settlement and the laws governing the monarchy are not suggestions. They are the rules of the game. If the palace investigation finds that the circumstances of the birth were not as reported, the legal status of Archie's place in the line of succession becomes a question for Parliament. This is the nightmare scenario that the late Queen likely feared, a situation where the integrity of the crown is compromised by the personal deceptions of a single family member. By attempting to modernize the birth process into a secret operation, Meghan has inadvertently created a legal trap for her own children. The sarcastic undertone of this saga is that Meghan and Harry constantly cry about security and the dangers of the UK, yet they chose to allegedly conduct a secret hospital run into the heart of London, one of the most surveilled cities on earth, without a single camera or witness seeing them. It's a miracle of invisibility that even James Bond would envy. Or, as is more likely the case, it's a story that simply doesn't hold water. The deadpan reality is that the Sussexes have been caught in a web of their own making, where every secret they kept has now become a point of suspicion. As the palace concludes its birth check, the world waits for the fallout. This is a huge blow for Meghan because it exposes her as an outsider who never understood, or never cared, about the weight of the institution she joined. She thought she could play games with the truth, but the truth is a stubborn thing. It lives in the hospital logs, in the memories of the nursing staff, and in the legal requirements of the British state. And none of those things are for sale. Meghan Markle may have the Netflix deal and the California mansion, but she no longer has the benefit of the doubt. The Portland nurses have spoken, the palace is investigating, and the hospital is silent. The mirrors are breaking, and the image looking back at the Duchess is one of a narrative that has finally run out of steam. The skeptical public, which has long questioned the oddities of May 2019, is finally seeing the curtain pulled back. This isn't just royal drama. It's a critique of a woman who thought she could treat a 1,000-year-old monarchy like a personal branding exercise. The exposure of the Portland birth narrative is the moment the Sussex illusion finally shattered. You can't be a royal and a secret agent at the same time. You can't demand the public's tax money and their respect while lying to them about the very nature of your children's entry into the world. If we are to take these exposures seriously, we have to look at the Portland hospital's own refusal to provide a straight answer. In a world of deadpan corporate communication, their silence is a loud, ringing alarm. Any other hospital would be eager to confirm its role in a historical royal event, but the Portland has conspicuously declined to stand behind the birth certificate. When an institution that specializes in discretion becomes so discreet that it won't even confirm a public document, you know you are in the presence of a legal minefield. They are not protecting Meghan's privacy. They are protecting themselves from being complicit in a narrative that their own internal records cannot support. If she wasn't there, they cannot say she was. It is as simple and as damning as that. This lack of institutional verification has reportedly triggered a reaction from the one place Meghan truly fears.
Because when they tick the box and they sign the terms and conditions, they don't realize that they may actually be signing away their life. Because the small print didn't spell out that it was going to prey upon their vulnerabilities and drive them to content they weren't looking for to keep them engaged for as long as possible. They didn't know that the platforms valued profit.
Buckingham Palace. The rumors that the palace is conducting its own birth check, a forensic verification of the medical and legal circumstances of Archie's arrival, signal a total breakdown of the royal family's internal trust. The palace does not investigate its own members for fun. They do not double-check birth records because they are bored or mean. They do it because they have a constitutional duty to ensure that every person in the line of succession is there legitimately. If the palace is checking the receipts, it's because the receipts provided by the Sussexes didn't add up. It is the ultimate skeptical response to a couple that has made a career out of being economical with the truth. Sarcasm of the situation is almost poetic. Meghan and Harry moved to California to escape the scrutiny and to live their authentic lives. Yet they have created a situation where their most basic biological milestones are under more scrutiny than any other royal in history. By shrouding the birth in a thick layer of unnecessary secrecy, they didn't protect their son. They created a vacuum of legitimacy. In the UK, a royal birth is not a private health matter. It is a matter of state. The Succession to the Crown Act doesn't care about your privacy or your desire for a different experience. It cares about the body from which the heir was born. If the hospital staff are saying that body was never in the building, then the constitutional house of cards begins to wobble. Think about the Meghan pattern of narrative management. We saw it with the private wedding that wasn't a wedding. We saw it with the secret baptism. We saw it with the shifting stories about her relationship with her father. It is a constant, exhausting cycle of her truth versus the actual truth. But while you can lie about a backyard vow exchange, it is much harder to lie about a clinical event involving a team of midwives. These women are professionals. They are not part of the vile British press that Meghan loathes. They are the medical backbone of the country. For them to reportedly say she wasn't here is not a political statement, it's a factual one. And it's a fact that destroys the carefully curated image of the Sussexes' first months as parents. The deadpan irony here is that Meghan's obsession with control has finally led to her losing all control. She wanted to control the press, so she hid the birth. She wanted to control the palace, so she bypassed their doctors. But by cutting out the witnesses, she removed the very people who could have verified her story and silenced the critics. Now she is left with a hospital that won't speak for her, a staff that doesn't remember her, and a palace that is checking her homework. It is a huge blow, not just to her ego, but to her future. If a birth certificate is found to be inaccurate, the legal fallout is not just a PR problem, it's a parliamentary one. The narrative arc of the Duchess of Sussex has always been one of the outsider fighting the system. But the system in this case is just the basic requirement of being honest. You cannot be a member of a constitutional monarchy and treat the laws of succession like a suggestion. You cannot claim to be a global leader, while the people who were supposed to be your nurses are questioning your very existence on their ward. The exposure by the Portland staff is a reminder that in the real world, you cannot just edit your way out of a lie. The midwives and the nurses are the keepers of the truth, and their reported skepticism is the most credible critique Meghan Markle has ever faced. The skeptical observer has to ask, what was the goal? Why the elaborate dance of Labour announcements that came too late? Why the refusal to use the Queen's own doctors? It all points to a desire to keep the reality of the situation away from those who are trained to spot a discrepancy. But you can't hide forever. Eventually, the palace checks will be completed. Eventually, the silence of the Portland hospital will become an official statement, and when that happens, the Sussex truth will be exposed for what it likely is: a series of half-truths and manufactured mysteries designed to cover up a reality that doesn't fit the brand. This is a huge blow because it targets the one thing Meghan values above all else: her status. If the legitimacy of her children's birth is questioned by the palace itself, her primary link to the royal family, her role as the mother of the king's grandchildren, is severely compromised. She has spent years trying to make the monarchy look outdated and cruel, but if it turns out she was the one being deceptive about something as fundamental as a royal birth, then the roles of villain and victim are permanently swapped. The sarcasm of her situation is that by trying to be too clever for the British public, she has ended up being the one who looks foolish. But you cannot buy the silence of every nurse in London, and you cannot stop the palace from protecting the integrity of the crown. The Portland staff have reportedly spoken, and their message is a devastating critique of the Sussexes' honesty. The birth checks are the climax of a long-simmering suspicion, and for Meghan Markle, the results are likely to be a blow from which she will never truly recover. The truth doesn't need a publicist, it just needs a witness. And at the Portland hospital, it seems there were no witnesses to the story Meghan wanted the world to believe.